Hello, everybody. My name is Cat Oriel with Forbes Breaking News, and today I'm here with Congresswoman-Elect Sarah Elfreth of Maryland. Congresswoman-Elect, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your win. And for those that might be unfamiliar with your background, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to pursue a career in public service?
Sure. So I currently serve in the Maryland State Senate, and I represent Annapolis, which is where I'm sitting right now. I have an 8-minute walk of a commute to the State House that I'll be taking later today, and just absolutely love representing my community, solving tough problems, bringing people together. And it's been just a wonderful experience representing my community in one legislative body. Didn't really think I would ever run for Congress, but the current congressman, who I was actually just on the phone with, which is why I was late, decided to retire after 18 years. And I thought long and hard about it. I thought about what I would like in a representative of my community. And I thought the skill set I had built, the experience I had at the State House, my passion for simply solving problems and helping people. It sounds boring, but it's 99% of the job. I thought that could really be of use in this Congress, and so I threw my hat in the ring just over a year ago.
Definitely does not sound boring. I have to ask, did outgoing Congressman Sarbanes have any advice for you in that chat?
Just now, yeah, well, we were talking kind of some of the gossip right now in the House around committee assignments and things like that. We talked a little bit about fundraising. You know, he has been so gracious in his help to me, not just in this process, but frankly over the years. He's been a mentor to me since I was first elected in 2018, and frankly even before that, I served as president of our local Democratic club, and he was helpful to me in that role. So before I even was in elected office, he was a friend and mentor, and I'm really excited to continue to rely on him, to call him when I just need advice, and he's been great.
Is there anything that you're tying up in your remaining few days left in the State House?
Lots to tie up. I have been an appropriator my whole time in the state Senate, serving on the budget committee, and have been really fortunate to bring over $100 million home in the last 6 years. And there's a lot of small projects and large projects that are still underway. And a huge part of my kind of offboarding is making sure those projects have the resources they need that the state committed to, and just to help kind of softly hand that off to whoever my successor might be. That's a big one. Constituent services, huge, huge deal. Again, people call us on their worst days and we're able to help. So that is a focus of concentration. And unfortunately, sadly, packing up the office today, which is on the agenda.
Yeah, well, it must have been a lot tying up those loose ends and then onboarding into the House of Representatives here in Washington, D.C. And you wrapped up new member orientation a few weeks ago. I saw you do a little day-by-day recap on your X account. So how was it? Do you have any takeaways that you weren't expecting, maybe?
I didn't really know what to expect, honestly. And the best part was meeting all of my colleagues. We spent months, almost a year, reading about each other, reading about the races, how tough they were. So actually meeting everybody in person was really exciting. And we have just an impressive, impressive class. We have folks with really in-depth legislative experience, either at in a state house or in local government. We have folks with military experience, folks with corporate nonprofits. I mean, it's the breadth of experience this freshman class brings is really exciting, and the skill sets that we bring are exciting. And I'm a person who's always I know as a legislator, I don't get to be a master of any one policy area or skill, but it's about knowing who I can turn to. And so what's really cool about the freshman class is different people are interested in mastering different skills as well as policy areas. And so it's really exciting to see that unfold.
Perfectly ties into my next question. What would be your biggest legislative priorities that you hope to address when you begin Congress in January? Maybe what do you hope to accomplish in your first 100 days?
Yeah, I love and I hate that question for a couple of reasons because even if this is not the Congress that I hoped to have walked into, and a lot of my colleagues in the Democratic side of the freshman class feel the same way. But it is what it is. I think the name of the game has to be staying united, staying on message, rebuilding and regaining some of the trust maybe folks lost, and that's why we saw the results we had in November. Um, it's also, a little bit of a shame because even if we had the majority, I don't necessarily get to lead as a freshman on many of the policy issues I ran on, like abortion, like affordable childcare, like affordable prescription drugs, or climate change issues. And, I don't get to, as a newbie, walk in and lead on those issues. But they're still really important to me in my district. And so helping, be a team player, co-sponsoring bills around those issues, playing defense on a lot of those issues is going to be important in the first 100 days. We still don't have committee assignments yet, and of course, a lot of our work is going to be in those committees. And I love that work. I'm a legislator's legislator. I love policy. I love digging in. So I'm really excited to learn this new legislative process. I'm excited to build a team. I've had a wonderful team in the State House, but it's been me and two people. So to build a bigger team, to have a really great focus on the district, on constituent services, on bringing money home, all that. It's exciting to build something from scratch. And that's what I'll be focused on for the first 100 days is learning a new system, learning, new terminology. It's going to throw me a little bit, the difference between a state house and the Congress, but really building a strong team and making sure my constituents, my district, stays up to date with all that's happening.
You mentioned being united amongst Democrats, but I'm curious how you'll navigate being a Democrat within the larger House Republican majority and if you'd be willing to work across party lines to pass bills.
So first of all, I will share that in our time during orientation, and we spent a lot of time with the current Congress and current members of Congress as well, in caucus and things like that. There is definitely a sense that we have to stay united, especially under a Trump presidency, especially under a minority, in a minority. And so, yes, I think the name of the game, it has to be, how do we stay united, particularly if we want to gain the majority in 26, which we absolutely have to do. We're going to have to protect a lot of challenged seats, and really proud that my class flipped a number of seats from New York to California. It's incredibly exciting, but we're going to need to support those members who are going to be on the front lines. And so staying united is really important for that as well. Now, when it comes to working across the aisle, it's something I've done in the Maryland Senate. Even though Democrats have a super majority here, I have passed 91 bills in 6 years. Every one of them has had a Republican vote. It's really important to me that it's not even just about showing that I'm bipartisan. It's about making sure an idea I have for my district could also work in someone's district who might not look like mine. And so it's going to be a priority for me when I get to Congress. It's just what I believe in as a value, but it's also pragmatic in this Congress. And so I spent some time in orientation, intentionally sitting with and speaking with the Republican freshmen to see, who might have a similar district as mine, who has similar policy interests and priorities. And I found a few, which is really exciting. And we go back to second round of orientation on Sunday up in Harvard. And so I'm excited to continue those conversations. And a lot of the issues that are important to my district are going to be important to many other people's district, regardless of party. So it's about finding that commonality, that common ground.
I do want to talk a little bit more specifically about your district, and you've had the luxury of already representing much of the district that you're going to represent in Congress as well. So let's talk about a few specific issues. One of the top issues listed on your website that I know is important to a lot of the members of the American delegation is the Francis Scott Key Bridge after it collapsed earlier this year. What is the progress on the plan to rebuild it, and how will you work in Congress to get it done?
Well, thankfully, hopefully it's going to be tied up in the current Congress. President Biden has been incredibly supportive from day one of recognizing that this is a disaster, not just for the 6 people who lost their lives that night, but also the port was shut down. The Port of Baltimore, one of the largest ports in the country, hugely important for our economy. So rebuilding that bridge is incredibly important to our economy and not just Maryland, but regionally. So the president has put forth emergency funding that should be able to cover a good amount of the rebuild of that bridge. It's now the congressional delegation. Hopefully, again, it will be resolved before Christmas. but our delegation has been laser focused on rebuilding that bridge. And I'm sure there will be much more work to do in the next Congress, particularly around federal permitting and making sure we can move as quickly as possible. And I'm looking forward to digging in on that as well.
Something also very unique about your district is that you represented the United States Naval Academy and the
Mhm.
thousands of active duty service members, veterans, and families during your tenure in the State House, and your congressional district covers much of that area as well. So, how do you plan to continue to fight for military members and veterans' rights in Congress?
Yeah, it's really important, not just to my district. It's important to me personally. My father was an Army veteran. I grew up vacationing at Fort Dix, which is a very random place to send to take your kid, but there was a water park, so it was very cool when you're 6 years old. Um, it's so important that we make life just a little bit easier for active duty military spouses, and our veterans. And so there's a lot of ways we can do that through tax code. So I'm looking forward to the tax bill in the next year. But I'm also something I'm very passionate about because we experienced it in my own family. My grandfather served in Vietnam and Korea and came back with what we never called it at the time, but we now do, PTSD. And he treated it himself via alcoholism. And that had obviously, the effects on other generations of my family that many families experience across this country. Even to this day, we're losing 22 veterans a day to suicide. And it's very clear that what we are doing is not working from a policy response. So I've been able to work on this issue a little bit at the State House. We passed a bill, one of the first in the nation, that set aside funding, dedicated funding, for alternative treatment therapies for veterans living with PTSD at academic institutions. So places where there are already, very strong protections and regulations, but there are research trials on utilizing things like psilocybin to see if, and there's been positive results. But we need to open that up a little more for our veterans living with PTSD, and try to get a little more creative in our policy solution, because we're talking about saving lives. It's really important to my district, to my state, and I'd love to be a leader on those issues when I get to Congress.
Well, thank you for sharing that personal family story there. And so, given that family history there and your just passion overall for service members and their families, I want to ask you your thoughts on President-elect Donald Trump's nominee, former Fox News anchor Pete Hegseth, to lead the Department of Defense.
Unfortunately, I'm not in the Senate, so I don't get a vote on that nomination. Have spoken with our current U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, our incoming U.S. Senator Angela Alsobrooks, and they're going to have a very high bar for all of the nominations the president has put forth. I am deeply concerned about the grave allegations he, in particular, is facing around sexual assault, which is an issue that plagues our military, has plagued the U.S. Naval Academy and many of our institutions across this country. So I consider that pretty disqualifying, especially because it's such a major challenge for our service members, particularly. It's not women alone, but certainly has a huge impact on diversifying and strengthening our service members. So to have somebody in charge who has very grave allegations of sexual violence is deeply concerning to me. And again, I don't have a vote, but I consider it pretty disqualifying.
And so, what are your thoughts on Florida Gov Ron DeSantis being floated as the potential nominee if Hegseth cannot be confirmed, as the reporting today shows that the support for him is a little bit shaky?
You beat me to that. I hadn't seen that headline yet.
No worries.
So I'm not sure of the governor's qualifications for that role. So I'm looking forward to doing my research.
No worries. Do you have any other thoughts about President-elect Trump's cabinet picks?
I think they're surprising to many people. I would have hoped to have more nominees who have the in-depth policy experience I think is required for those very serious roles, and fewer maybe I don't know a better term than maybe celebrities in those positions. These are the non-sexy part of this work is delivering services for the American people, and that requires serious, experienced people, regardless of party, in those roles. And I'm deeply concerned about things like the EPA, incredibly important to my district and to Maryland, to have a nominee who has not great record on the environment, let alone environmental protection and regulation, gives me great pause. The conversations around eliminating the Department of Education, representing so many families, so many students, especially, I feel like our special needs students are very much lost in the conversation about eliminating the U.S. Department of Education. My first thought and my first fear is for the most vulnerable people in our communities, which is our children with special needs, and where are they going to go to have the protections, the IEPs, the supports required if we don't have a national standard and a national department that is ensuring that they receive the education that they deserve. So I have a lot of pause, a lot of thoughts about President-elect Trump's decision making here. I know that the Democrats in Congress are going to be standing up for a lot of those values, a lot of our priorities. We're going to do the best we can to play defense. Where we can find common ground, Leader Jeffries has been clear that we need to strive for that. But where we can't, and where our values and our priorities, not just as a party, but many in the values and priorities of our communities, we're going to need to stand up and play defense, and we will.
Well, that's the end of my questions. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I really appreciate the time and the questions, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much for your time today.